Another restless night. When is this torture gonna end? My head feels heavy, my teeth loose in my head. I would never wish this insomnia on even my worst enemy.
Ness, it's 4 p.m. You've only been awake for 8 hours. Quit acting like you've been up for 10 days.
Have you ever felt like watching a Saw movie, but instead of torture cages, it was just the crippling depression of mundane conversation and your own restlessness? Well, boy, do I got a movie for you! So this is a movie called The Sleep Experiment. I came about the movie with my friends one night and we just wanted to pop it on. We were like, hey, let's watch this shitty movie. It's based off the original creepypasta, The Russian Sleep Experiment, which, if anybody's ever read that, it was actually quite a horrifying creepypasta about Russian scientists doing experiments on gas that they would release into rooms to keep people awake. Because technically, soldiers are more productive if they don't have to sleep. And this test was performed on a group of prisoners that volunteered for this procedure in the hope that their sentence would be removed if the experiment was successful and they behaved themselves the whole time. So I'm going to spoil the creepypasta here because it has zero to nothing to do with this movie. So the creepypasta, and don't quote me on this because it has been several years since I've ever read this creepypasta, basically they lose contact with the room because the prisoners start attacking each other. Once they dissipate the gas and they enter the room, they basically find them enjoying a meal of each other and themselves, which of course biologically would be impossible. You wouldn't be able to eat your own insides. And there's even these crazy, crazy moments in the creepypasta where the scientists are trying to interview the prisoners, and the prisoner can sense that they're there even though they've removed all of their sensory organs and are in the middle of eating themselves. So there's a really terrifying aspect to this, that this experiment went terribly wrong and then basically kicked all of your senses into overdrive. One would think that you're almost on a higher sense of being if you've been exposed to this gas for too long, and that's kind of supposed to be the concept. But this movie took that extremely cool concept and didn't do anything with it. But we'll jump right into this shitty movie and we'll get on to it. These men don't look like prisoners, they look like businessmen. The prisoners are told the standard procedure that their prison sentences will be cut if they can make it through this entire procedure. Yo, is that Colonel Sanders? Nah, he's way too sexy. And as you would expect, all the prisoners are immediately at each other's throats. I put in my notes here so many times that the prisoners are fighting because, to be honest, almost every time that we're looking at these prisoners, they're arguing, fighting, or at each other's throats in some way, to the point where it just becomes so mundane and uninteresting because all they're doing is arguing. So, they're worried about the other prisoners that are in there and what they've done because, of course, they're innocent, but all these other men, they're bad people, and they're worried that they'll just be released into the world if they get through this experiment. But spoilers, they won't make it through the experiment. I've seen so many other blockbuster movies that make less effort to give background story to characters than this movie does. And this movie is probably one of the least important movies to give a background story on characters because we're kind of just here to watch them go batshit insane and eat each other. I don't really care about their mommy issues. One of the guys in the group has an asthma attack and they need to medically remove him from the room. When they bring him back, everyone in the room immediately assumes that he's an imposter. I assumed one of them had something to do with children, and we find out one of them is a child murderer, which isn't as bad as what I thought it was, but it might as well be. And I don't remember any of their names, so I'm just gonna say one of the guys. But one of the guys just literally starts to lose his fucking mind and starts talking to himself, starts trying to talk to the scientist in the other room, and then just starts slamming his head against the wall. Kind of reminds me of the crackheads outside my office. All while this is going on, our Colonel Sanders man is being interviewed by the police. One, because he was the lead scientist on the case, and two, they want to know if there's other experiments out there, considering this one was not a thriving success, if you would. And, I don't know why he'd be willing to tell them any information, but I assume they're just hoping he'll offer them some information. The prisoners are, I think, at like day 14 or 15 or something, and they've reached full-on hallucination mode. They're all fighting with their own different demons that they're seeing since they're so deprived of sleep. And we get our final cut to the prisoners before it all ends. Basically, the big prisoner calls out that this one man admitted to several child murders that might not be on his record, and what the fuck are they going to do about that? But it's also then revealed that since they signed a waiver here, anything that they say and do is for scientific purposes, it's confidential, it can't be used against them in any court of law because it's used for scientific research only. Now, this is 1961, so that would certainly fly. This throws him into a rage because the child murderer will never see justice, and also, in their sleep-deprived state, he assumes that the reason his child is dead is because of this child murderer, even though logically that would make no sense considering you have no idea when these people went to prison, when your child was murdered, you have no information on this. But in his sleep-deprived state, he decides he's going to murder the child murderer, though none of us are sad for him. But this is definitely one of the most low-impact murder scenes I have ever seen, so good thing that murder scene's confidential. All of the scientists in the room have absolutely no fucking idea what to do now that that guy is dead. So they get this brilliant idea to just fill the room with sleeping gas, because they're like, if we stop putting in the no-sleep gas and we put in sleep gas, they'll go to sleep, and then we'll be able to obtain them all. Except none of them fall asleep. So in short, I would say that besides just the standard idea, that was the only thing they really kept from the Russian sleep experiment, is the fact that no matter what they did, these people never actually ended up falling asleep again, which just sounds terrible. But the militia goes in, and of course they get attacked by the prisoners that didn't go to sleep. And they shoot them all up like a fucking nightclub, and they contain all of them. In all of this, of course, the interrogation is still going on. They really do assume that this doctor is up to no good, but they have no legal proof of anything, until they ask another doctor in the field any experiments she's been doing. And she actually mentions that said Colonel Sanders' doctor has been the head of dozens of experiments like this. So cue the dramatic music as they go to arrest the doctor. I don't know if he was actually going to arrest him. He kind of just like went to the doctor's house like alone and seemingly unarmed and didn't really do anything. And simultaneously we get the doctor talking to one of the inmates. And this is where the Saw comparison comes in, because there's 10 Saw movies. If you guys have ever seen a Saw movie, you know the last, 2 minutes of the Saw movie are nothing but John Kramer monologuing while there's dramatic music playing in the background, while basically detectives or law individuals end up finding out that their labors are fruitless and there's no way they'll ever catch him, and he is just such a fucking genius. Yeah, that's basically how this movie ends, except we don't really see any cool plans that were put into place like in Saw, so it kind of just leaves me as an audience member assuming that the movie thought it was way smarter than it actually was. Kind of like all of those self-described alpha males on Reddit. It's kind of like, guys, if you gotta spell it out for me, I don't really believe you. I do wish I had better things to say about this movie, because this was actually a phenomenal concept for a movie, because I love the creepypasta. It's such a good creepypasta. Honestly, I hope that some teenagers on a film project in their basement make a better sleep experiment movie, because I actually think you could. But this has basically been the failed creepypasta, the failed Saw remake. This has been the sleep experiment. So honestly, wouldn't even recommend, because honestly it's not even about the sleep experiment, so kinda lame. But hey, videos like this, I make them, even if the movies suck. And if you have a movie that does suck or doesn't suck that you'd love for me to watch, I would love to watch it and review it for you. And if you do like this video, please make sure to interact with it, and do make sure you subscribe. It means so much to me, and thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one. Bye!